Hello and what is up YouTube? My name is G3Iron and today we are discussing that long-beloved question asked by the great poet Shakespeare himself, to buy or not to buy Wolcen Lords of Mayhem. Today in our discussion we're going to be giving maybe 3 reasons why you might enjoy Lords of Mayhem or 3 reasons why you might not enjoy this particular game. Those of you who are new to the channel, you can go ahead, like, subscribe, and ding the bell to be notified about more video discussions just like this one. If you're a veteran of the channel, welcome back, and of course you know how things work around here. There should be some timestamps placed above my slightly balding forehead for your convenience if you'd like to jump ahead or revisit any of the discussion points that we have for you today. Those are hot linked for you down below in the video description. So to buy or not to buy, at the end of the video today I'm going to have several questions for us to discuss down below in the comments, and so of course I welcome all your feedback and all of your contributions to this discussion. This isn't a platform where I get to share all of my opinions and don't want to listen to any of you. That's just the opposite. It's actually where we encourage one another to share our opinions, share our feedback that we've got on the discussion at hand. So, love to hear from you down below in the comments, any thoughts that you might have. So the first reason that you might want to try out Wolcen Lords of Mayhem is that it's an action RPG, right? It's an action role-playing game. So if you like any of these particular titles that you can see here, if you enjoyed Diablo 2, Diablo 3, Torchlight 1 or 2, Titan's Quest, if you play Path of Exile or Grim Dawn, then maybe this is going to be a game for you. It fits well inside the genre. You're essentially running around killing monsters, grabbing loot, so that way you can have better stats to kill more monsters, which will then drop better loot, right? It does a great job of this particular feedback cycle that is the hallmark of the action RPG genre. Now, people have been asking me all throughout the week what sort of comparisons Wolcen ought to draw. I think it does a couple of things well. It definitely pulls a lot of its graphics and a lot of its art from Diablo 3. It pulls a lot of its darkness from Path of Exile. There's just blood and guts everywhere. It also pulls a lot of its itemization in the way how you actually build your character out from Diablo, Grim Dawn, and then Path of Exile. But then occasionally there are some cartoony aspects to it, like Torchlight as well. So it's a mixture, and you can really get a sense of the various other action RPGs that played into the developers' minds as they were going about actually producing and making Wolcen. And so I think in the future it also gives us a direction of where the game will go and how the game will take shape in the future with this vast history and wonderful giant games that they are standing upon and relying upon as a essentially discussion partner for the game design process for Wolcen moving forward. So if you like some of the things that you have seen in any of these other games, and you like this style of genre of gameplay, then why the heck not? Give Wolcen a shot. If you don't like action RPGs, well, you're not going to like Wolcen. That's what it is. It is a bread and butter RPG, action RPG, that is built upon the foundations that so many of these other games have set in the past. The second reason why you might want to try Wolcen or might not want to try Wolcen is because of the quality of life. Right now, some of the quality of life is pretty shaky, and this particular Dilbert comment basically sums up everything here. Did we actually test anything before releasing the product? Well, no. Why would you test it? Because that's what your customers are there for. If they don't like something, they'll complain about it and let us know. First off, hitboxes can be frustrating and inconsistent. You might be hitting one sort of monster very, very consistently with a particular type of skill or a particular type of attack, and then you go to attack another monster, and it's nowhere near the same amount of hitbox style or hitbox size. Sometimes you actually have to click away from where a monster is, so like you have to click near the monster, not where the actual monster is, in order to actually target the monster. The same thing is true when you are selling items in your stash tab. The same thing is true when you're picking up items. The same thing is true as you're walking around. Sometimes terrain that is actually impassable is not necessarily visually impassable. So sometimes you'll be going to walk in a particular direction and your character looks like they can take a straight line or a relatively straight line from point A to point B, and the reality is they can't. They've actually got to like walk around some stuff that you otherwise can't see. So hitboxes are indeed inconsistent. Next up, the animations can be a bit buggy. Right now, the way how the game is designed, there is no queue system for you to queue up multiple different skills. So what I mean by that is if you press a particular skill, if you activate a particular skill, that's the skill that you're using, and for as long as you're using that particular animation for that particular skill, you are locked into that. So right now, there's a lot of builds that can take advantage of this by actually using skills that have little to no animation, which means you can feel like you're casting faster. Whereas on some of the skills, there are animations that take a long time to go off, depending on how you set up the skill itself. This can make for a very inconsistent playstyle feel as you are playing around with different skills. Some skills are just going to feel amazing, and the quality of life is there, and you can feel it as you're playing the game. I myself have found two builds, one that uses Winter's Grasp with 0 cooldown, and another that uses Bleeding Edge, where it essentially cycles around your character. You don't actually have to stop and wait for the animation to go off, where you throw your axe and then you catch it. Those two particular builds are incredibly smooth from my gameplay testing, but there are plenty of other builds out there that aren't that smooth. So that could be a reason why you might want to try it, because it does feel smooth in some situations and there's a lot of promise there. But on the other hand, if you've seen builds that maybe look a little bit like they're constantly hiccuping, this is why. It's because the animations can be a bit buggy and inconsistent. Another quality of life feature right now is that many of the passives on the passive tree are simply broken or not working properly. During the first week of release, Wolcen had a particular passive node that was supposed to be written with a decimal point for giving you a particular bonus, but instead they moved the decimal point in the wrong direction, and so instead of giving you a fraction of the damage that it was supposed to give you, it was giving you a massive increase to damage that was not intended, and a whole bunch of players went in and went all in on builds that use that particular passive node. Other passives on the tree are simply broken and not working at all, or in combination with other particular passives, so this could be a reason not to play a particular build. If you've seen a build in action, then chances are it's working, but a lot of players aren't necessarily branching out on the passive tree, and you're seeing a lot of players use the same passive over and over right now in a lot of builds, and that's because players know that at least those passives are working as intended right now. Next up, right now there is no trading support. One of our most popular videos and discussions here on the G3 channel is talking about trade in Path of Exile, and if you like trading and you like having things like websites or third-party auction houses or even in-game auction houses or in-game support for trading, right now there is virtually no trading support. You can trade inside Wolcen Lords of Mayhem right now. You actually can trade. It's possible for you to take an item, visit someone else's game, or play with someone else and trade them an item. One of the things that's really nice about this is you can trade gold, you can trade primordial affinity, you can trade basically everything in the game. You can trade between characters. There's nothing that's necessarily character locked once it drops to you. You can trade gems, you can trade skills, you can trade anything basically that you would want to. However, there's no search functions for it right now. People are just trading based off basically Discord images, or people are uploading their entire stashes and individual items onto Imgur or other image hosting sites. So right now it is like the most primitive form that trading will ever be. So again, to buy or not to buy, well, on the one hand, you might want to buy it if you like a Wild West environment where there's not a set economy. It is crazy right now. You could buy something potentially for a couple thousand gold and then sell it for millions later on down the road. That's actually a thing. At the same time, there's no trading support, so don't expect all of the quality of life that exists in other action RPGs and other multiplayer scenarios to be present here in Wolcen. There's only room for this to improve moving forward in the future, but right now it's incredibly bare bones. Next up, if you want to re-roll a character, the bad news is that your stash tabs are character bound. So let's say you get a really awesome item, or you've got a particular skill that you want to build around, you level that particular skill up on character 1, and then you say, hey, I want to go play through this awesome story and I enjoy the game, so I'm going to go build character 2. Well, character 1 and character 2 can't interact with one another, can't interact with their stash, can't interact or trade items, unless there's essentially another player that you are acting as a go-between to actually trade your items to yourself. So unless you've got a buddy in-game who you're okay with trading items to and saying, hey, can you hold this for a second and then trade it back to me on another character, it's going to be really, really clunky for you to actually take anything that you found on one build and use another. The good news about this is that there's a ton of quality of life for you to respec your character in Wolcen Lords of Mayhem once you get to the end game. So let's say, for instance, you're playing one build with one particular passive tree, with one particular set of skills, with one particular set of itemization. Well, it's incredibly easy because items are dropping left and right. You can get all sorts of gold and simply go out and purchase things if you so desire to do so. But there's also an incredible amount of just items that are just showering themselves as you progress into the end game of Wolcen. So chances are it won't take you very long to actually transition a full character from one passive tree, one set of items, and from one set of skills into an entirely other passive tree itemization and set of skills. That is very possible in the game, and you can use all in-game points in order to reset your passive tree and reset all of your stat allocations. So on the one hand, quality of life stash tabs are character bound. On the other, their resetting system is really, really nice, and I'm enjoying it at the moment as I've reset my character. The third reason to buy or not to buy Wolcen Lords of Mayhem is simply the ancient argument, potential versus present, right? That's really what this boils down to. So do you want to support a product that shows it's got a lot of room for growth, right? If you want to take something that you say, this is fun now, but I see that there's problems and there's room where it could improve, then maybe you do want to buy Wolcen. Maybe you do want to experience that growth of a particular product. Maybe conversely, you're looking at a product and you go, nope, I want something that's a finished product now that's not necessarily going to need future support in order to flush out whatever it is that's good and bad about this particular game. So if you want to support a product that shows room for growth, then Wolcen's going to be it. If you want to stay away from a product that's not finished yet because it's clearly not finished, then stay away. Well, have you had a previous experience that maybe has let you down in the past playing a game too early, maybe during an alpha, maybe during an early access, or maybe during a beta cycle of a game? If that's the case for you and you've got that previous bad experience in your mind or hanging over your shoulder, hey, don't buy this game because maybe it's too early and maybe it's reminding you of another experience, then just don't buy it, right? There's always the potential that this game won't fulfill its own potential and won't continue to grow. It could be that it's just going to be what it is today forever. So if you've got that experience in your past, then I would stay away from Wolcen. Don't have Wolcen be a repeat of something that has happened to you in the past that is a negative gaming experience for you. Next up, do you want to play a game that has an offline mode that you can actually go in, mod, edit, and play test builds? This is something that's incredibly helpful. At the moment, you cannot take offline characters and bring them online. It's very similar to Diablo 2 in this regard. So a lot of players are messing around with the offline mode in order to check passives, in order to check damage, in order to check effectiveness of various things. And you can do that. There's a lot of action RPGs in today's market, like Path of Exile, for instance, that doesn't have an offline mode, that we can't answer a lot of questions about builds and about mechanical interactions without putting in hundreds of hours and testing something out, right? So if you want to play a game that has an offline mode and doesn't require you to spend hundreds of hours to potentially answer a question, you can just go in and edit your character file, then you could do that on Wolcen. You can play a character offline, fully edit your character if you want, and then go in and test things out. It's not necessarily a great way to play the game, obviously, because there's not going to be challenge there if you edit your character and just want it to be the most OP thing ever. You can do that if you want to, but if you just want to test things and actually see how mechanics interact with one another, you can do that in offline mode before you risk building a character and trying it online. So I think that's a great feature, and it shows a lot of potential for any new mechanics that get added to the game. We can simply go into offline mode and try them out and test them before we actually encounter them in the online version, where we're potentially risking our character's gear, etc., our character's gold, our character's primordial affinity, etc. Last up, potential versus present. Do you want to spend $40 on a game presently? I've heard a number of players this week in our very own G3 Discord who have said, you know what? I'm going to buy that game because it looks great, and $40 isn't a lot to spend on the game. That's great. That's where their budget is at. I've seen other players who have said, you know what? $40 is outside of my price range right now. I mostly play free-to-play games, or I'll buy games when they go on sale. And Wolcen might indeed go on sale. Okay, so we never know exactly what's going to happen, who determines sales, who can know what's going on in Gabe's mind about Steam sales and how those all work. It could be that Wolcen shows up in 5 or 6 months from now in the Steam summer sale. It could also be that it's a smash hit that doesn't go on sale for another year or two. So it's up to you, but I want to say this very loudly and very clearly. Each of us has to make our own decisions about how it is that we're going to use our hobby time and our hobby resources. So just make good decisions, right? If any of these questions that we've been leading up to in this part of the discussion have made you scratch your head, or maybe any of the gameplay of Wolcen has made you a little bit hesitant, just don't. If it's not in your budget to buy the game, don't buy the game. No one's making you buy the game. So please, 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 if you don't want to play the game, if you've got any inkling that you don't want to play it and don't want to spend the money on it, then don't do it. If you do, however, if you look at it and you go, you know what, $40, hundreds of hours worth of entertainment, and I'm going to enjoy the game, then dive right in and enjoy what you can out of Wolcen Lords of Mayhem as soon as possible. Lastly, I've got a bonus opinion here for all of you. There's a whole bunch of people who have been asking me for my personal opinion. I don't want to get really narcissistic here and say, oh, here's my opinion and my opinion's right. I don't want to do that. But that being said, This is my super duper well thought out, incredibly worded, and perfect opinion that is without fault, mistake, or even the possibility of error. If you think you've heard me say something that's wrong or incorrect, well, you're wrong. Stop hearing what I'm not saying. So there you go. Go blow your mind with this bonus opinion from me personally. First off, I bought Wolcen primarily to try it out. I bought it the Thursday before it upped its price, so I got it for $29.99 instead of the $39.99 that it is presently. So I bought Wolcen early to try it out and then hopefully report back to the community and say, here are my thoughts. I was going to play it early on Friday morning, and then if it sucked, I was going to drop it and say, I'm done with this game. It sucks. Nobody buy it. A lot of other streamers out there have been contracted to be sponsored promoters of Wolcen. We here at Good Guy Gaming, we have not. There's a couple other wonderful community action RPG figures who also have not been sponsored. Like, I just wanted to really quickly qualify and clarify for any of you wondering about this. Just because someone is playing a new game doesn't mean they're a sponsored content host for that game or a sponsored promoter for that game. So it's against YouTube terms of service to actually have paid promotion for something and to not disclaim that, to not actually go out and be transparent about that. So just so that way you all know, I'm only supported through our wonderful supporters over on Patreon. I have 0 contracts with any gaming companies right now, which is really nice as a hobby because it means that I can just genuinely give you my thoughts and I don't have to feel any kind of tension or any kind of weight of having a contract with a company or a paid promotion on the side of it. I think that absolutely taints the possible opinions that people can give because they're contractually committed to say certain things. So we here on Good Guy Gaming, we are not contractually obligated to say anything about any game. This is literally just a dude sharing opinions with you. That's what I do in PoE. That's what I do presently in Wolcen. So hopefully that clarifies if you had any questions about sponsored content or anything of that nature. Secondly, I've enjoyed every hour of Wolcen I played, okay? I started playing it Friday morning. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I was playing offline, so I didn't have to worry about any of the multiplayer being down or any of the online stuff being down. I just enjoyed the campaign and continued playing. I went from playing it Friday morning to then finding myself playing it Friday afternoon to then find myself streaming it again on Saturday. And then pretty much this week, whenever I've had an opportunity to actually play games, I haven't been playing the other games that I normally would be playing. I'm playing Wolcen. So I've personally enjoyed every hour of Wolcen that I've played. Thirdly, I've bumped into plenty of bugs that have not broken my game. So I say this for 2 reasons. One, to be transparent. There's tons of bugs in this game, okay? There's tons of bugs. There is nothing more frustrating than having a stash tab full of stuff that you want to sell, and then you go back to town, and for some reason, when you right-click on something to sell it to the trader in town, it just doesn't work. It takes a couple of clicks. That's really frustrating. That's obnoxious for me to have to click on an entire inventory of stuff individually, potentially clicking on it multiple times. That's really super annoying. It's really annoying when you scroll over something and you go, hey, I want to compare this. Is this an upgrade to what I currently have? Are these pants better than my pants? Is this shirt better than my shirt? Is this shoulder pad better than my shoulder pad? And then you go and you scroll over it and it doesn't display. And so you got to click around and then hopefully it'll come back up in a second. There's a lot of bugs in this game. They haven't broken my game, they haven't locked me out of the game, but there are plenty of bugs in this game that I've experienced. They haven't ruined my experience, but they've definitely frustrated me at times. Fourth, if you have experienced any of those particular bugs, or you've seen others who have, it absolutely sucks. And let me just empathize with you for a moment. That would absolutely tilt me if I lost a stash tab or character progression, or I had an item that was going to be an upgrade and it just disappeared, or if I lost time, right? If I took time off to play this game because maybe I'd been building up hype for it, and so I took time off of work and I took time away from family and said, this is the game I'm going to play and I'm going to play it with my friends, and then the online was down, that sucks, right? Let me empathize there for a minute. That absolutely sucks. I didn't personally have that experience. I was playing offline and playing on my own. I wasn't looking forward to playing with a whole bunch of players. I was looking forward to maybe 1 or 2 hours Friday morning if it was a decent game, and then maybe again later on in the weekend. And it turns out it was a really fun game for me to enjoy, and so I'm still playing it. Fifth, Wolcen to me is the perfect tier 2 action RPG to play when my main game, Path of Exile, is between leagues. So this is presently how I'm feeling about Wolcen. I'm not going to continue playing Wolcen once 3.10 comes out for Path of Exile because I love Path of Exile. Everything about PoE I love. Even the controversial things in PoE. I love to discuss those sides of things. I love learning new things in PoE. So everything about me personally and my own gaming habits is still going to be play PoE and play the heck out of PoE in League and play the heck out of PoE in Standard. That being said, Wolcen is the perfect gap filler if you want to go play another action RPG for maybe a couple of weeks as you're waiting in between PoE leagues to actually play. I know a whole bunch of you out there in the G3 community have said, you know what, I'm actually waiting until PoE 2, or I'm going to take a league off, or maybe I'm actually burning out on PoE. Then if you're still looking for that same sort of action RPG character progression and character shaping and building out a character, fleshing out a character with items and passives, then Wolcen is going to be an excellent option for you in that space. Lastly, Wolcen has the potential to rival Diablo 4 and PoE 2. Again, this is my opinion, right? So take it for what it's worth. I think this game has got the potential to actually say to the next generation of action RPGs that are getting released, hey, pay attention to us because we're now on the block. The continued development of this game is going to make or break whether or not Wolcen is going to continually be mentioned when Diablo 4 comes out and when PoE 2 comes out. If the game is this bad right now and it's got bugs and it's still fun and worthy to be played, then we as consumers actually are the winners here, okay? Because we can expect other companies in the ARPG market to provide better products. Companies like Blizzard, companies like Grinding Gear Games. They need to now compete with a new standard that has come out. That is a some benefit for us as gamers, that there is competition in the space, and so there's now got to be more refinement and more polish on items as they come out. And I think Diablo and Path of Exile both can learn a lot from Wolcen's release. Hey, if we release something that's similar in terms of its grandiose ambitions as Wolcen, but maybe has less bugs and has more polish, then we'll actually take those consumers right back and we'll bring those gamers back to our game. This is good. Essentially, we're going to have a love triangle or a hate triangle between Blizzard, between Wolcen, and between Grinding Gear Games for action RPG fans' attention. And that's great for us because it means that there's going to be differences in the market. We're going to have options. Each of us has our own preferences when it comes to games. And it means we're going to have diversity for choice, but also it means we're going to have competition for performance in game, which is good news for us as gamers. Well, as I wrap up today, I've got questions for you all and would love to read your comments down below. What are your thoughts about Wolcen so far? Did you buy Wolcen? If you did, great. Let me know down below in the comments. If not, what exactly are you waiting to see? Like, what's going to be the tipping scale moment for you that's going to make you decide to buy a game or not buy a game, conversely? Second, what features about Wolcen would you say are the most fun? I'm having a whole bunch of fun with the end game. Nobody had even mentioned the end game that I saw on stream, on YouTube. Like, so many folks are talking about build guides and mechanics and so many complaints about bugs. Nobody had even mentioned that the end game has got like this city builder side of things. And I love city builder games. So the fact that there's like this city builder turn taking, kind of like a board game going on the side while you're going out and also, you know, going on expeditions and filling out your character and progressing that way, that's really fun. So I'm very much enjoying that. But that's for me. What about for you? What features are you enjoying the most in Wolcen right now? Thirdly, what do you think the future of RPGs are going to be, action RPGs, and what could they learn from Wolcen's launch? I think definitely there's a lot to learn here about polish. There's a lot to learn about clear communication of expectations. But what else? What other things could other action RPGs learn from Wolcen's launch? Lastly, what say you? Is Wolcen to buy or not to buy? If you were Shakespeare and you were looking to play an action RPG, what would you recommend to your friends? Would you say the time is right and you should buy Wolcen, or would you say the time is wrong, so don't buy Wolcen for now? Drop me a comment down below and let me know what your thoughts are on these 4 discussion points. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I hope today is the day a Mirror of Calandra drops for you. Thanks for watching that video. If you'd like more information on any of our discussion points today, you can see them down below in the video description. If you'd also like to join our Discord or support our Patreon, you can do so with the links down below. Thanks again, and big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters.